LabRats has been established to represent the atomic test survivors across the world. It has emerged from nuclear veterans worldwide and has been expanded for the entire atomic community. UN Secretary General António Guterres said of atomic testing, "The history of nuclear testing is one of suffering, with the victims of more than 2,000 nuclear tests, often from the most vulnerable communities of the world. The devastating consequences, which were not confined by international borders, encompassed impacts on the environment, health, food, security, and economic development." Since nuclear weapons testing began on the 16th of July 1945, nearly 2,000 have taken place. In the early days of nuclear testing, little consideration was given to its devastating effects on human life, let alone the dangers of nuclear fallout from atmospheric tests. Hindsight and history have shown us the terrifying and tragic effects of nuclear weapons testing, especially when controlled conditions go awry, and in light of the far more powerful and destructive nuclear weapons that exist today. As founder of LabRats, I have had the privilege to talk to these veterans and their families. And during my time as chairman of the BNTVA, I represented the brave servicemen who ensured that the British nuclear testing programme was completed. We must remember that many countries have been involved in atomic testing. Tests in Australia, Christmas Island, Marshall Islands, French Polynesia, Russia, India, China, Pakistan, North Korea, and the USA have affected thousands of servicemen, civilians, and their families, and continues to affect their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren today. Across the world, other atomic test veterans organisations continue to fight for recognition for their members, including the cleanup crews who were sent to clean up the radioactive mess left by the testing programme. Yet governments continue to deny any responsibility. LabRats support these organisations and will be working closely with them. The inhabitants of the regions where the tests took place had their lives changed forever. The ecosystems devastated. Today, Runit Dome is in danger of leaking radioactive material into the Pacific Ocean. We still have nuclear weapons today. They are ever present within our world. It has become the norm for countries to flex their muscles and show their dominance with their nuclear stockpiles. There are many individuals across the world who are undertaking great work in research, awareness, and video production to highlight the problems that the atomic test survivor community are facing. These people have spoken out for the community, produced books and research papers, and lobbied governments. We need to support them as much as possible and continue the fight. We must remember the testing program that took place from the 1940s up until 2017. The deliberate detonation of a nuclear bomb in beautiful locations, leaving the areas radioactive, affecting every single human being across the world. The bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki showed the world how powerful these weapons were. The devastation caused by the bombings should never be repeated. It is time that the governments across the world own up to the damage caused by the testing programs, the effect that it has on the servicemen, their families, the indigenous people, and the ecosystems across the world. It is time that the Massey study was recognised. The DNA damage caused by the test is undisputable, yet still the denial continues. The world is a very different place now. The thought of exploding a nuclear bomb to study the effects is preposterous. It would never be allowed to happen, yet it did. Governments authorised the tests, the experimentation, yet they deny any responsibility for the consequences. We will continue to fight for recognition, for governments across the world to apologise to these servicemen for exposing them to the deadliest of man's creations. It is the hope of the United Nations that one day all nuclear weapons will be eliminated. LabRats is here to support everyone affected by the testing programme. We need to educate the world of the effects of the testing programme and their continual effects today. Many families are still engaging an invisible enemy. We must remember the servicemen that lost their lives earlier than they needed to, the families who are still struggling today. the grandchildren who never saw their grandfathers, the agonising deaths that many suffered due to their exposure. These families will never recover. Generations have suffered and will continue to suffer. We must remember the indigenous people whose homes were destroyed so that nuclear weapons can exist today. Everyone affected by the tests is a lab rat, a guinea pig. As James Gordon Josephson said in his book In the X, Y and Z Files, the 100-year experiment continues today. We can all help. Join social media groups, help the associations across the world and spread the message. Visit our website for a list of organisations, videos and links to research documents, and sign up for our weekly blog. This can be done at www.labrats.international. Was the testing programme worth it? The answer is definitely no, it wasn't. Too many people have suffered because of it. In the words of Brian Cowden, all actions are global.